Now we're going to start. We've got everything mapped out. Actually, let's jump to the feet really quick. For the feet, I usually just start with a triangle, or kind of a triangle. It's almost a right triangle on this side. And then it's longer over here. So that's a basic shape. And then I'll draw a little oval. That's where the toes are going to be. Let me erase some of this. Okay, so we've got the basic layout of our guy here. Now we can start adding a little bit of detail. So I'm going to give him a little bit more detail on the ribs. Obviously, this guy's been to the gym. We're going to give him a little bit of hips and some thighs. These placeholders we had for the knees need to be fixed, but we can start erasing a lot of our sketch lines and guidelines now, at least on the inside. I'm going to leave that one right in his head because we're going to use that in a little bit. The main thing, though, I think when we take our little stick man, or tall stick man, that's what it looks like when you start this way. Very tall, slender stick man. When you start with your stick man and you just add your joints, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, knees, so on and so forth, it creates a more accurate drawing. You just have to remember to add the shoulders and the waist, and it eventually will fall. Everything will fall into place. Okay, so I think we've got a pretty good start to our drawing here. Now we could start adding a little bit more detail, and I just know from memory how all these muscles form. I always wanted to work for Marvel when I was a kid, and I used to draw all of my own comic books. But that's the start of the stomach and your six pack. And most people only have a 4-pack, but then down here it starts going into your I think I got this a little bit low. Your love handles. But these muscles, I don't want to get into drawing comic books. That would be a whole nother lesson. But you can see more of the form of the body. And then your knees right here. You've got kind of this big circle here for your kneecap, and then right underneath you've got another one. So I like to just draw like that. And do it again over here. Remember, the knees are right above that line, typically, unless you're drawing, and this would be somebody that's maybe 6 foot tall. If you're drawing somebody shorter, maybe they're 5'5" or something like that. You would do 7.5 heads, because remember, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 heads tall. So, and this wouldn't necessarily be the same for women. I would typically draw a woman at 7.5 heads tall. The main thing, though, is just cut it right in half, and then divide them into 4 equal parts above and below, and use that for your guidelines. But now for the face, cut that right through the center, and you can start your eyes. We're obviously not going to be able to put much detail into this, but there's our eyes. Draw your eyebrows. And if you cut this section in half again, that's going to be the bottom of your nose. I'm just going to draw kind of a wide V there. Then a line for the mouth and the lip. Let me lower this so you can see a little bit better. And then your ears are aligned, like I said, with your eyes and the bottom of your nose. So we'll add those. And then for the hair, I just add kind of the outline of the hairline. And then add a little bit more on top. That would be the start of the forearm. So on and so forth. Hopefully that makes sense. And you were able to kind of duplicate some of these results. Now, from there, obviously, you would add all of your details. So this is my HB pencil. We're just using the same one. This is a sketch, mainly just to get the proportions right. But you could start adding some more of your details. We'll add some pupils or some irises. And maybe we could just start adding shading. And if you haven't done this before, make sure you use the side of your pencil when you're adding shading. It's going to go down softer and not have those really crisp, sharp outlines like we have here with these fine lines. We're going to pretend like our light source is coming from this direction. So that means this side of the body and all of those different parts of the body are going to be bright on the top right and dark on the bottom left. And then we could just draw, shade in these fingers. Those would be in the shadows on both sides because at least the fingers on the back side. Remember, we're shading the left side and the bottom of everything. And this is going to be pretty quick and simple, but just to help kind of illustrate the concept. A little bit over here. And he's not going to be naked, so let's give him the pants. Right below the belly button, he's wearing a belt. So we'll give him a little belt buckle, and he's wearing jeans. So you can put a couple little creases in the sides right here on the hips, around the knees. He's wearing skinny jeans. There's a couple little creases like that. And then this is obviously very simple, little, almost like line art or comic book art, but you get the concept. It doesn't matter if you want to make them realistic or a comic book style. You still want to have the correct proportions. So shade a little bit on the left. On the left of everything. There we go. And then we're going to give them some tennis shoes because we're running out of time. So I'm going to make kind of this ball on top. We'll add the jeans. Crease in the jeans. And then, like I said, just kind of the little ball. And then if you drew the sole underneath, maybe he's got some boots on or something. There's the tongue. I know I'm moving a little bit quick, sorry. Some shoelaces. And then if you've watched me long enough, you know I use these blending stumps. And all these it's paper wound up really tight. A lot of people will use their finger to smudge. And I don't like to do that because now my finger's dirty. And when I come over here, I just smudged it on the side of my paper. So I don't like to use that. And it gets oil on the oil from your skin on the paper. So use these little guys, or even a Q-tip will work, or tissue. But these are just a little bit more accurate. You can see this one's pretty used. I've used it quite a bit, but when you use these little blending stumps, what it's doing is you're drawing, and all of your graphite is kind of, see how it's kind of grainy. It's sitting on top of the paper because you're only drawing on the tip, on the top of your the surface of the paper. You're not pushing, none of the graphite's going into the valleys of the tooth of the paper. And when you do this, you're kind of pushing the graphite deeper into the paper, and so it doesn't look as grainy. And it kind of fills in all the little valleys and just makes it look a little bit smoother instead of so sketchy. And then from there, our drawing still looks pretty light. That's because we just used one pencil. And if you look, the little shadow I'm drawing under the neck, you're going to notice it's the same direction as these little arrows. So you're going to have that shadow there. Maybe there'll be a little bit more here too, but from there, if you wanted to jump over to still a decent little sketch, let me grab my other pencils. If you switch over to a darker pencil, I'm going to jump to my 7B here, and you can see the difference. You can't because the light's very bright on it. Let me move it down a little bit. But hopefully the light doesn't shine on it too bright, but you can see the difference in the value of that pencil. And you can see, so these are basically our midtones. We're not drawing everything a midtone like I normally would for something super realistic, but these are our midtones, our highlights, and then with this pencil, our dark shadows. So if you try to kind of picture everything with just 3 values, is it light, dark, or medium? That's basically what we're doing here. But the main takeaway I hope that you get out of all of this is using all these reference points to get the right proportions. And like I said, everybody's body is a little bit different, but it does make a difference when you use these. And it's not just for human anatomy; it's for anything. Everything you're drawing, you can use these reference points. Like if I wanted to say, okay, so from the bottom of this shoe, if I drew a line straight up, what does that align with? Maybe it's the edge of the shoulder here, or the inside of the shoulder. And that's how, when you see artists do it like this, that's what they're doing. They're trying to get these little measurements. Everything is measured, and it doesn't matter if you're drawing from a photo or from real life. And that's what these observation skills that you always hear artists are talking about. But and obviously everything is much easier when you use the right tools and the right pencils. So, but there we go. That's the basics to it. And it does make a huge difference. I remember when I was first drawing portraits, I used these same little concepts that I didn't know before, because I was always just drawing and looking and drawing, and I didn't know how to get the measurements and how to line things up and how to use these reference points to create more accurate proportions. Whether it doesn't matter what I was drawing, but when you use those reference points, and you can make them up as you go too, just look at your drawing and like I said, just kind of follow those lines, and you'll see, like the wrists, where the fingers hang, the belly button's aligned with the elbows, those sort of things. And you can create anything accurately with those when you use those little tips and tricks. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and hopefully you are now a proud owner of a, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. But
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next lesson.